All right, so this week in the shop, we've got this pretty slick convertible Camaro SS in for a full vinyl wrap color change. It's going to be receiving matte silver metallic, I believe is the color. We'll double check here in a minute. But it will be going a lighter metallic color that it will be probably matte with a satin finish. As you can see, it's a black vehicle, so the transition between the wrap and the color of the car will not be that bad at all. Black cars are probably one of the best cars to vinyl wrap. White cars are probably one of the worst. So, being that this is a convertible, we won't really have much of a C-pillar or roof to worry about. So I'm happy about that. It's really just gonna be, wrapping the front and rear bumpers on this thing and then getting the rest of it dialed in. There'll be some disassembly with this car. We're probably gonna have to take the taillights out, remove the badges, spoiler, antenna, headlights, and side mirrors. Just very, very basic things. I don't even know if I'll pull the bumper completely off. We might have to. I guess we'll see. I've never blown one of these apart, so it's gonna be a first for me. I don't know how they are to work on or anything, but we'll find out. My plan of attack here is hood, fenders, and front bumper. I like kind of getting that done first. It's usually the hardest part of these cars, and this front bumper in particular is one of the hardest bumpers to wrap just because of how tall it is, and these corners are just so tricky. You have to get so much horizontal stretch coming around this corner here to make this want to fold down nicely. There may be a chance we'll have to seam it here. I guess we'll see. So enough of me yapping. I'm gonna pull it inside and get it washed, and we'll come back to where we start taking this thing apart. Alrighty, so I got the material cut and ready to go for the front clip. I think we're gonna go ahead and start with the passenger side fender now and just kind of make our way around, get the front clip down, and move on. Alrighty, so we've got the hood and fenders down, and we are going to make our way over to the front bumper now. I'll probably take these headlights off and disconnect them. That way there's nothing in the way. But when we do bumpers, we have to take essentially all the trim out of this thing and blow it apart. The plastics in here got to come out from the top and the bottom. The fog light and the bezels themselves have to get out. This piece in here as well, if we can remove that, that would be a lot of help for laying this material down. And then taking the headlights off will help us, because then we can get our hand past this edge right here. We can work in the here without a headlight obstruction, and that's going to be very important when laying the inlay piece here. I think we'll do an inlay on the top piece here and seam it somewhere, or we just inlay in this corner. I don't know how I want to inlay this. I don't know how I want to prepare this bumper yet. First things first, I'm going to get it blown apart. So I'm going to get this up on the table, then we'll throw it on the car and get to wrapping.
A few moments later.
Alrighty, so we've got the bumper blown apart like I mentioned. Got all the plastics out. Didn't have to take the fog lights themselves out, but I was able to actually remove the trim piece, the bezel, without taking the actual light off. A little bit of extra weight there helps me when I'm wrapping. So now that we've got all the plastics off, so I've got to sit here and decide where I want to make some inlay pieces. I'm going to look online and kind of see how other people are doing them, and then just kind of gauge and make my final choice. But at this point, I've already got my material cut out, so I'm going to trim for the height of this bumper, and then I'm going to go ahead and start laying my inlays, and then come back and lay the face, as you'll see here shortly. So let's get that going. Alrighty, so now we are pretty much left with the back third of the Camaro. We've got pretty much everything else besides the windshield frame and then a couple small bits on the side mirrors that will not take a long time, so I'm gonna leave that for the very end. Next up is the rear bumper. We've got the rear bumper taken off, blown apart, and as clean as I could get it. I'll probably clean it up just a tad more once it's back on the car, but this is essentially the amount of disassembly that I'll go with. A lot of guys like to blow cars apart, but again, I don't like to, just because this stuff really doesn't like to blow apart and go back together a bunch of times. And having this clearance here to have my hand into to push the material and feed the material in here is critical to having a good install. Same with stuff like this. Any 90-degree turn, like on these flat surfaces here, I usually will inlay, and it's usually a pretty good finish. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna inlay these pieces here. I'm gonna probably inlay in here because it's just such a harsh turn, and then knifeless tape on the body line, seam on the body line, and have the seam facing into the car. Should hide it fairly well. So now that this is taken apart and blown apart as much as I'd like it to be, we're gonna mount it back on the Camaro, and then I'm gonna again clean it up, do my inlays, and wrap the rear bumper. Then we're gonna move on to the quarter panels, the trunk lid, this little piece here for the convertible top, and then finish it off. So there's not much left here. I plan to have this thing all wrapped up today, post heat it maybe tonight, and go over and do some finishing touches on it tomorrow morning, get our final media on this thing, and send it out the door.